Last week we talked about pillars and the foundation that we train on, and we're going to spend 10 weeks talking about connection and the different things that fall within the connection, and then we'll move to the next pillar and spend 10 weeks on that. And I think that it's so important because these pillars are somewhat abstract because it's not a definite task that you do. It's tasks within the pillars, but they're very abstract. And so I want to spend enough time on all of them that people can start to feel and see and figure out how we're doing it. And so we're going to stay with connection. And, we talked and kind of defined connection and the things that fall within that connection. But what I want to talk about today is one topic that is probably the hardest for people that I have found with clients, and that is we're going to talk about keeping the leash on. And, when I tell people keeping the leash on for 2 years, I've had one client in all these years successfully do that. And they are so successful with their dog, and their dog just makes zero error in the house. And then they've been able to have him off leash with no off leash training, because that's just what the dog knows, and that leash just becomes a part of him. And I'm not saying for 2 years you're holding on to the leash, but for 2 years that leash is on so that you can fix the problem as it happens without causing confrontation with the dog. So I really want to dig deeper into, the leash and why it's so hard and why it's so easy. And really, if everybody could follow this, I don't think you have to do anything else, with a lot. So Michelle, talk about your experience with, dogs on leash and clients with dogs on leash, and how you explain it, and what does that mean to you?
I explained it pretty much how you just did. That we are trying to create that bond, that there is, it's almost just an extra arm, right? An extra length to your arm, so you don't have to be chasing them or running after them and scaring them in that way. But just to create that, hey, we always have to be connected in some way. And it's just a little bit easier if there's a leash dragging.
Yeah.
Usually with my clients, and I agree, I think I actually know the client you're talking about. I think it's the doodle.
No, actually, it's a
you had a doodle
north.
client that I took home one time, and the dog was over 2, and they're like, do we need to keep the leash on this dog? And I was like, Joe never told you to take the leash off? And they're like, no. And I'm like, how long have you been doing it? And they're like, since she was 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can take the leash off now.
I can't remember what that is.
And that dog was perfect. I don't even remember her name, but she was perfect with that, with house manners and stuff like that. She was, because that's what I asked. I was like, does she need it? They were like, no. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you just get so used to it. Well, kudos to that too.
I don't have any clients that have ever, and I try just, hey, for the first 2 weeks you have this dog, let's leave the leash on.
Yeah.
And they still can't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's so hard for people. I'm just going to use June as an example for this, because that's kind of, she's over a year. She's not a puppy, but if she's in the house and she's, not in her crate, she has a leash on her all the time.
Yeah.
So that I do just have that extra, hey, don't do that. Because she's still a puppy. She chews, and she's still going to the bathroom in the house. And
sure.
So just those, so I can get to her a little bit faster without scaring her, and without it being a traumatic experience. Outside, I'm not as good. I do take the leash off of her outside.
Yeah, and I do too if I'm not supervising, because I don't want him to get caught up somewhere.
Right. Yeah. But it is really hard for people. I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my brain if I've even had success for the 2 weeks of people keeping the leash on all the time. Because every time I come, I'm like, well, your dog's on a leash right now. Has it been on the leash since I've been gone? And every time I'm like, yeah, we do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that breakdown is. That people.
Yeah. Melissa, what about you?
I think the breakdown
there are some breeds that I was like, it's not even just necessarily, I mean, you can teach a dog to be off leash, but huskies in general, like they just have more of a drive to run.
Yeah.
I was like, so you need to not only create an extreme connection to this dog with the leash, but this dog needs to be leash trained because she's going to be on a leash the rest of her life. So it's just going to be part of her life. She's got to get used to it.
Right.
And my niece is so good about it. Like, she seriously is like, she never takes that leash off of that dog, and everybody around her does.
Yeah.
My parents do, her dad does, and the dog will take off. The dog is a year now, and every time somebody takes the leash off, she is gone.
Yeah.
And it is like chaos.
Yeah.
And it is every time we have a party at my sister's house, my brother-in-law takes the leash off, and it's because he feels bad that the other dogs are getting to run around. When in all reality, the dog is fine because they put her out on a long line, and she's still playing with the other dogs.
Right.
Like, she's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's hard when you have other people around you that know better or feel bad for the dog.
Yeah.
Or the kids do. I think the kids' excuse is kind of a valid one if they're messing with the leash and doing harm to the dog.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like that's a big one, is that, oh, my husband takes it off every time he gets home.
Mm-hmm.
I think another one, and I think it's more subconscious, but that you are now more accountable for your dog,
Yeah.
and you don't have an excuse.
Right.
When your dog's off leash, oh, I couldn't control him, or there are so many ways that we, this sounds mean, but blame our faults on the dog,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
And if once you put the leash on him, it's like, oh yeah, this is real.
You're now accountable.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of a reminder to be accountable.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think people don't like that. I
Yeah.
think people want to believe that their dog is, what I hear all the time is, oh, but so-and-so's dog is, I have it, and they're a good dog.
Yeah.
But we don't
Yeah.
know what they did.
Right.
This is your dog. Stop comparing them to so-and-so's dog.
Yeah.
Another one I've had is people judge us.
Mm-hmm.
When they come to our house, they think we're mean, so we take it off. And I just think that's silly. Who cares?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's every excuse why not to have a leash on the dog.
Yeah.
Right. Shannon, talk to me a little bit about leash stuff.
I wonder if, like we say, we put the leash on the dog and then we're accountable for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if there's some element of still unaccountability, and they still let their dog do whatever it wants while it's on the leash, and so then it's not working, and so they say, well, it's not working, so I'm going to take it off. You know what I mean? Like, to me, when I trained my dog, the dog that I had the longest on leash in the house was Clooney, and he was on for several months, and I didn't start that with him until he was older dog, you know. So you know, you have it on the dog, and they're attached to you for a really long time.
Yep.
And then they're still have it on, but they're not exactly attached to
Yep.
you, right?
Yep.
So then the dog feels like you still have your hand on them
Mm-hmm.
when you don't.
Right.
If you skip any part of that step
Yeah.
that makes the dog still feel like they're attached to you, the dog will still continue to do what they
Right.
want.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think part of that is in this failure of the steps,
Yeah.
because people don't want to be attached to the dog because they feel like it's controlling them,
Uh-huh.
not the dog.
Yep.
So they don't follow that step, and even if they still leave the leash on the dog hasn't learned that they have to behave with the leash on,
Mm-hmm.
and so then they continue to run through the house and go and chew things up with the leash on, and then, well, it's not working, so we take it off.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I think you have, for that to be successful, you really have to complete all the steps
Yeah.
to your satisfaction, and I think that's also why there's a difference in normally training how long the dog has to wear it,
Sure.
because we usually don't have people wear it for 2 years, and I didn't even have Clooney wear it for 2 years, but I had to have him wear it until he was under control to the satisfaction that I wanted.
Right. Right.
For me.
I think the other hard part is, and it kind of goes along with what Shannon is saying, is that I think a lot of people do think the leash has to be attached to them,
Yeah.
and then the dog is in the way.
Right.
And it's okay to put them in their crates for more than 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or to back tie them with a bed and a chew toy.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's if you need them out of your hair and you're not paying attention to them like 100%. It's okay to do those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I think people forget, or, I guess what I want to do is just talk through the steps that I tell people, and I'm not lenient about it, and there's no excuse for bad behavior when the first homework is that your dog needs to be on a leash. And what I tell them is your dog needs to be on a leash attached to you or something all the time that they are out of their crate, or if they're outside they can have their leash off. But in the house the dog has to be attached to you or something, or they need to be in their crate. And that's literally the first 6 weeks that it needs to happen. A dog does not need to make mistakes to learn not to do something. If they don't ever learn to do it, they won't ever do it as they mature through it. And so a dog doesn't know how to communicate to tell you that they need to go outside if they're not forced to communicate. They'll just go someplace else and go to the bathroom. You can prevent them from chewing on things and picking things up, and you can be on top of it all the time, or they're tied up in a safe place that they're on their bed with the chew toy and hanging out, the best way. But I think it's also important that a dog can learn about what you're doing, holding on to the leash, step on it, hook it on your foot, whatever it takes to do the dishes with you, so they see that it's nothing exciting. There's nothing going on, and they can go lay down someplace because you're doing the dishes. And so I think it involves them so that they're clear, and it takes the curiosity out of them of, oh, you're doing dishes and I'm going to jump on the dishwasher and I'm going to, all of that they just go, oh, you're doing dishes, nothing important, I don't need to be a part of that. So I'm pretty hardcore with it, and there's no excuse when people are like, well, they're still doing this, have you kept the leash on? Well, no, they're just learning bad habits. You're just teaching them bad habits by not controlling it. The other piece that I talk about in that first 6 weeks is that first 6 weeks, whether it's a puppy or a rescue, whatever it is, the first 6 weeks that you own that dog, is your behaviors are going to influence how it's going to respond. So when I do this, it does this. When I do this, it does this. And a lot of times that first 6 weeks is a lot of disciplining in a way, and it creates confrontation if you don't have a leash on. If you can go to the end of the leash, because the dog doesn't know that the end of that leash is attached to him, that you go to the end of the leash to redirect him, then it takes away all the confrontation, and you can stay a neutral dog owner without having emotion to it. And then when you do need emotion, it's real instead of, oh, you just act like that all the time. And so that's really my first 6 weeks of everything. And so, and yeah, I tell them it's not easy. It's a pain in the butt. But if you want to have a dog that really truly is connected and understands and can be clear about what your expectations are, that should happen. After that 6 weeks, then it's leashes on and they're dragging it until they make error, and then the dog is back on leash and attached for 4 weeks, and then they get to drag the leash until they make error. And so that's the process that happens over the first, that 2 years is, I'm going to see what you're going to do by dragging the leash until you make error, and then the leash is attached back on for a month. And then what happens usually about 1.5 years is we take the leash off until you make error. And then you're attached again for a month. Then we drag for a month, and then it comes off, and it comes off until you make error. And so that's the cycle that I teach everybody.
I like to explain it to people too that, like, yeah, sometimes puppies do stuff that's really cute really, when they get a puppy or adopt a dog, like they're really into training for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And then it kind of dwindles off.
Yep.
And so I really try to like get that 6-month window of like, this is the time you're going to do it. So let's not try to fix it later.
Right.
Let's get them into this now, and not so that when they are an adult dog or 2 years from now, you are going to have like a perfect dog that you don't have to do anything with.
Yeah. Right.
It's hard. I agree. Even having June, it's really hard sometimes. Like,
Yep.
having her on leash all the time. And she'll chew through her leash, so she has to be on a metal leash, which is really annoying to drag around.
Right.
So I get it. Like, and I try really hard to use a soft leash if she's just dragging it, and the hard leash if she's tied back.
Right.
Because
Right.
that's really when she starts to chew on it. But
Yep.
but I get it. It's not easy having a leash like drag around the house all the time. But I'm hoping a year and a half from now, she'll just be the perfect dog, and we won't have to do that, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, that is the goal, is that she'll
Yeah.
be connected to me and Brandon, and we won't have to worry about that. And,
Right.
and we won't have to worry about even like leaving her alone in the house, because that's everybody's goal, right? Is to not have to use the
Exactly.
crate and not have to
Yeah.
use a leash. But you have to put the work in for that first couple of years to
Right.
get that.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys think that by keeping a dog on a leash like that, what does the connection where does the connection happen? How does it transfer into real life stuff? Shannon?
Like for me, I'm just the kind of person that the dog should be wherever I am and be doing what I think is an appropriate task for the dog to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have them, for example, in my office, I have my computer desk and I have the dog bed right by me.
Yeah.
So when the dog is attached to me on the leash, they naturally would be on the dog bed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you set everything up that way, it's just like your real life, how it should be all the time.
Right.
You're just using the leash to control them when they're like, oh, I heard the mailman, I better get up and go see. No, I'm at the computer, you're on your bed, right?
Yep.
And so then anytime that they would get up to leave, to go to the bathroom, to go chew up your sofa, to go bark at the window, any of those kind of bad behaviors is stopped, because their job is to be on the bed while you're at the computer,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And so then if you have them attached to you all the time in every room of your house, they learn what their appropriate job is in every room of your
Yep.
house.
Yep.
They learn that they're supposed to pay attention when you get up and go in the other room. They are supposed to follow you wherever you go and do whatever the appropriate thing is. And so if you can be consistent with it and set it up like logically the way that you want the dog to behave in your house,
Yep.
then they just do it.
Right.
And it's really not that hard, and it's really not that complicated, because if the dog's at your side on the bed and the leash is attached to you, that's not a problem.
Right.
But if your bed is maybe across the room,
Yeah.
and then the leash gets all wound through all your furniture, then that could be, you
Right,
know?
right.
So if you can plan out logically how you want it to be and then use the leash to help you,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of that complication and excuses out of using it
Right.
to teach the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Melissa, how does that transfer to outside?
Nick and I always say that the biggest adventures as a pack,
Mm-hmm.
we always say pack adventures, meaning like when we go out and we go out hiking and backpacking and canyoneering quite a bit, and our dogs stick with us. We started the first few hikes as puppies, like they're on leash the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little belt that they can just clip on, and I don't have to have my hands holding them.
Yep.
And they just follow us. So now when we go backcountry, they're always right by us or checking in.
Yeah.
There's no, like, people ask, like, oh, how's their recall? Well, I've never really had to use it
Right.
because they're here.
Yeah.
But that what I'm interested in, they're interested in. And if they, I don't know, they now have a really funny way of, if they want to go see something,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of communicate, and we all go
Yeah.
and investigate some exciting thing in their minds.
Right.
But
Right.
it just creates a bond that we're all on the adventure together. And I'm not, like, I don't bring them out into the mountains to control them.
Mm-hmm.
We all go out, and that's our exhale time.
Yeah.
We can just relax.
Yep.
And I want them to feel that too, that we all relax together, that I'm not the pressure.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times with dogs, once we put a leash on them, we are then controlling them. We are then, but But when we have it on for all the time,
Right.
they learn that's life.
Yeah. Yep.
Control is not bad. Control is life.
Yep. Yep.
And there's no longer that weirdness that some dogs have with the leash.
Right.
Or I have friends whose dogs, when we're camping, will run as soon as they pull the leashes out,
Yeah.
because that means they have to go home, or they have to go.
Right.
They're in trouble. They use that as a punishment.
Yep.
My dog's like, oh, leash, what's happening? Oh, where are we going?
Right.
What are we all doing? But
Yep.
I don't know. It just creates a connection, like a true connection,
Mm-hmm.
mentally and physically.
Yeah. Yeah. Michelle, what's your advice to everybody out there with dogs being on a leash all the time?
I wish, I know this is going to sound really terrible as a dog trainer, but I really wish Murphy was a little bit nicer to people.
Uh-huh.
Because I really think My Pack is a really great definition of what is going on with what we're talking about right now. Because
Yeah.
Rambo and Prudence were never unleashed as puppies, ever. I mean, they were because we lived in an apartment, so we walked him to go to the bathroom.
Right.
But they were never on leash in the house. Where Murphy, we did a lot more. He was not on a leash for 2 years, but he was definitely a lot more controlled as a puppy.
Uh-huh.
And a lot, like, we definitely took the time, and he was on a leash a lot of the time, and he was back tied a lot, and his connection is so much different with me and Brandon, not just me,
Yeah.
than either of the other two.
Yep.
Like Prudence really loves Brandon, but there's still a disconnection there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think looking at My Pack, Murphy is the prime example of what you can get
Yeah. Yep.
if you take the time to put into that first year.
Right.
And you do have a lot of leash time, or all the time.
Right. Right.
So I guess my advice is, like, if you really, and the other thing, we talked about this a little bit last week too, is like what do you want that to look like? Do you want your dog to actually want to be with you, so you don't have to control them when they're older?
Right.
Because that's really nice. Like, I mean, Murphy
Yeah.
does know a recall, but he doesn't have to have it.
Right.
Like, he really doesn't. We
Yeah.
do use it, but not
It's
because
in
we
such
need
a
it.
different context.
Right.
Yep.
Like, so if you want that really good bond with your dog, that really deep, like, loyalty that you see in movies,
Right.
because that is exactly how I feel Murphy is with us. Like,
Yep.
where the other two are not that way at all.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting, and it'll be fun to, like, talk about this in the future with June.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Because she's such a different type of dog.
Yep.
She's definitely more disconnected than any dog I've ever had. So,
Right.
so I really think this is the only thing that's, like, really working to help her connect with us, is that she can come in and settle down with us with the leash on.
Yeah.
With the leash off, she can't.
Well, and the fascinating
working too
thing
much.
with June is that we call her a rescue in a sense, because you got her as older. She
Right.
didn't come from a breeder. So you're applying the same things to a dog that you didn't get as a puppy.
Right. Yeah.
So
But this is the only thing that's working. She,
Mhm.
with the leash on, she really, like, has to come in and connect
Yeah.
with us. She has to. She has
Yeah.
no other choice.
right.
So if you have a dog that is disconnected, because there are some puppies that just are,
Oh sure.
like, this is the way to fix it.
Yep.
This is the way that you will get
Yeah.
that strong loyalty that everybody wants,
Yeah.
even if you don't think that's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my advice is, if you can follow what we're saying and follow along with the pillars that we've created, you really will have a lifelong companion that is truly everybody's dog, and the dog that everybody dreams of having. And this is really one of the key pieces of creating connection, getting connection, and also not having to discipline your dog so much, and not having to have behavioral problems in the long run. We know it's hard. We're not asking for, we're not telling you that it's easy. It's easy for us because this is what we do all the time, but it's not easy. And it's, all of a sudden that leash is there, and you go, oh, got to put the leash on, but it should become routine. And it's just like my clients, Michelle got that 2 years into it, we're still dragging a leash, because that's just becomes a part of the picture. So much that you just realize that for 2 years you've had this leash on a dog, and it's great. So if you fail at it a day or a week, you can always